The morning rush at the Golden Crown Cafe always felt like controlled chaos. Steam hissed from the espresso machine while the gentle murmur of conversations mixed with the clinking of porcelain cups. Elena Rodriguez moved between tables with practiced grace, her black uniform crisp. Despite the early hour, she had been working at this upscale cafe for 3 years, serving the city's elite their daily caffeine fix. At 26, Elena had grown accustomed to being invisible. To the wealthy clientele who frequented the establishment, they spoke freely around her, treating her like part of the furniture. Most days, she preferred it that way. It meant less awkward small talk and bigger tips from customers who barely registered her presence. The cafe attracted a particular type of customer. Business executives, politicians, and tech moguls all found their way to the Golden Crown's polished marble tables. The prices were steep, but the privacy and discretion were worth every penny to those who valued both. Elena balanced a tray of freshly brewed coffee as she approached table 7, where 2 men sat deep in conversation. She recognized them immediately. Victor Sterling, the 42-year-old founder and CEO of Sterling Dynamics, is a revolutionary tech company that had transformed digital security. His sharp jawline and piercing blue eyes had graced the covers of business magazines countless times. Beside him sat David Kane, his longtime business partner and supposed best friend. The 2 men had been coming to the cafe every Tuesday morning for the past 6 months. Elena knew their usual orders by heart. Victor preferred his coffee black, with a single sugar cube, while David liked his with cream and 2 sugars. They always sat at the same table, always arrived at exactly 9:15, and always left generous tips. Today, however, something felt different. The usual easy camaraderie between the 2 men seemed strained. David's smile appeared forced, and Victor looked more tired than usual. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, and his normally perfect posture seemed slightly slumped. Elena approached their table with professional composure, setting down their cups with practiced precision. "Good morning, gentlemen. Your usual breakfast will be out shortly." Victor looked up and offered a genuine smile. "Thank you, Elena. You're always so efficient." She felt a small flutter at hearing her name. Most customers never bothered to learn it, but Victor had made the effort months ago. It was a small gesture that had stuck with her. David barely acknowledged her presence, his attention focused on his phone. His fingers tapped impatiently against the screen, and Elena noticed the tension in his shoulders. She moved away from their table, but something made her linger nearby, arranging the sugar packets at the neighboring table. "The investors are getting impatient," David said, his voice low but audible to Elena's trained ears. "We need to move faster on this acquisition." Victor rubbed his temples. "I know, but I want to make sure we're making the right decision. Sterling Dynamics has always been about innovation, not just profit." "Sometimes you're too idealistic, Victor. This is business, not charity." Elena found herself unconsciously slowing her movements, drawn by the edge in David's voice. She had heard hundreds of business conversations in this cafe, but something about this one felt different, more urgent, more dangerous. "I've been thinking about restructuring the company," Victor continued. "Maybe bringing in some fresh blood to the board. What do you think about Elena joining our consulting team? She's got a sharp mind." Elena nearly dropped the sugar dispenser she was holding. They were talking about her. David's laugh was cold. "Okay, waitress, Victor, you're more tired than I thought. Why don't you take that vacation we discussed? Clear your head. Maybe you're right. I have been pushing myself too hard lately." Elena watched David's expression change when Victor wasn't looking. The mask of friendship slipped for just a moment, revealing something calculating and cruel underneath. She felt a chill run down her spine. David's phone buzzed, and he excused himself to take the call. "I need to handle this privately. Give me 5 minutes." He stepped outside onto the cafe's small patio, visible through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Elena could see him pacing as he spoke, his free hand gesticulating wildly. His body language screamed agitation. Victor remained at the table, scrolling through emails on his tablet. Elena noticed his hand shaking slightly as he lifted his coffee cup. Whatever was happening in his business was clearly taking a toll on him. Unable to resist her curiosity, Elena positioned herself near the window where she could just make out David's conversation. She pretended to water the plants that lined the cafe's interior, straining to catch fragments of his words. "The transfer papers are ready," she heard him say. "Once he signs, everything goes to me." Elena's blood ran cold. Transfer papers? What was David planning? "He has no idea what's coming," David continued, his voice carrying through the thin glass. "By tomorrow night, Sterling Dynamics will be mine." The plant watering can slipped from Elena's hands, clattering to the floor. Several customers looked up, and she quickly apologized, scrambling to clean up the mess. Her heart was pounding so hard she was sure everyone in the cafe could hear it. David was planning to steal Victor's company. The man Victor trusted as his closest friend and business partner was orchestrating some kind of corporate takeover. Elena's mind raced as she tried to process what she had heard. She glanced at Victor, still focused on his tablet, completely unaware of the betrayal being planned just outside the window. His trusting nature, which had always seemed like a strength, suddenly looked like a dangerous vulnerability. David ended his call and returned to the table, his mask of friendship firmly back in place. "Sorry about that. Crisis averted." "No problem," Victor replied. "Actually, I've been thinking about what you said. Maybe I should take some time off. Can you handle the Meridian contract signing tomorrow?" Elena watched David's eyes light up with barely concealed triumph. "Of course, leave everything to me. I'll take care of all the paperwork." "Thanks, David. I don't know what I'd do without you." The irony of Victor's words made Elena feel sick. She busied herself with clearing nearby tables, trying to look casual while her mind churned with possibilities. Should she say something? Would Victor even believe her? She was just a waitress, after all. What proof did she have besides a half-overheard phone conversation? The two men finished their coffee and prepared to leave. Victor left his usual generous tip, along with something extra. As Elena cleared their table, she found a business card tucked under his saucer. His personal contact information was handwritten. On the back, in case you ever want to discuss that consulting position. Sometimes the best insights come from unexpected places. Elena stared at the card, feeling the weight of the decision before her. She could pretend she had heard nothing, go about her day, and let whatever was going to happen unfold naturally. Or she could take an enormous risk and warn a man who might not believe her. The rest of her shift passed in a blur. She mechanically served customers, took orders, and cleaned tables. But her thoughts kept returning to David's phone conversation. The calculating look in his eyes, the way Victor had trusted him completely. By closing time, Elena had made her decision. She pulled out her phone and dialed the number on Victor's business card, her hands trembling slightly as she waited for him to answer. "Victor Sterling." "Mr. Sterling, this is Elena from the Golden Crown Cafe. I need to tell you something important about tomorrow's contract signing. It's about David Kane." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. "I'm listening," Victor said finally. Elena took a deep breath and began to explain everything she had overheard. As she spoke, she could almost feel her simple life as a cafe waitress slipping away, replaced by something far more complicated and dangerous. She had no idea that within 24 hours, a luxury car would be parked outside her modest apartment, and her entire world would change forever. The game was about to begin, and Elena Rodriguez had just made herself a player. The meeting, the silence on the phone stretched for what felt like an eternity after. Elena finished recounting David's phone conversation. She could hear Victor's steady breathing, the faint sound of traffic in the background, and her own heartbeat thundering in her ears. Victor's voice was carefully controlled. "Are you absolutely certain about what you heard?" She gripped the phone tighter, standing in her small studio apartment with its peeling paint and secondhand furniture. The contrast between her world and his had never felt more stark. "I know how it sounds, Mr. Sterling. I know I'm just a waitress, and David is your business partner, but I heard what I heard." "Where are you right now?" The question caught her off guard. "At home." "Why?" "I'm sending a car. We need to talk in person." Elena's pulse quickened. "Mr. Sterling, I don't think that's necessary. Just thought you should know." "Elena." His voice carried a weight that made her stop mid-sentence. "If what you're telling me is true, then I'm about to lose everything I've built. Can do is hear you out properly. The car will be there in 20 minutes. The line went dead. leaving Elena staring at her phone in disbelief. She looked around her cramped apartment, suddenly self-conscious about the mismatched furniture and the stack of unpaid bills on her kitchen counter. What was she getting herself into? 23 minutes later, a sleek black sedan pulled up outside her building. Elena watched from her window as a driver in an expensive suit stepped out and looked directly up at her apartment. She grabbed her jacket and headed downstairs, her nerves jangling with each step. The driver opened the door without a word, and Elena slid into leather seats that probably cost more than her monthly rent. The interior smelled of expensive cologne and new car leather. As they drove through the city streets, Elena tried to calm her racing thoughts. They pulled up to a towering glass building in the financial district. Victor Sterling's name was etched in gold letters across the entrance. Elena had seen the building countless times, but never imagined she'd be inside it, especially not at 10 o'clock at night. The elevator ride to the 50th floor felt endless. When the doors opened, Elena stepped into a reception area that looked like something from a luxury hotel: marble floors, abstract art, and floor-to ceiling windows that offered a breathtaking view of the city lights. Elena. She turned to find Victor approaching from a hallway lined with executive offices. He looked different outside the cafe, setting taller, somehow more commanding. His tie was loosened, and his sleeves were rolled up, giving him a more approachable appearance despite the intimidating surroundings. "Thank you for coming," he said, extending his hand. "I know this must feel overwhelming." His handshake was firm and warm, and Elena noticed he held eye contact longer than necessary. "It's definitely not how I expected to spend my evening," she admitted. Victor led her to his corner office, a space that managed to be both impressive and surprisingly personal. Family photos sat on his desk alongside awards and business magazines. The walls were lined with books, and a chess set occupied a small table near the window. "Can I offer you something to drink? Coffee? Water?" "Water would be great, thanks." As Victor moved to a small bar area, Elena took in the view from his office windows. The city spread out below them like a glittering circuit board, each light representing lives and dreams and struggles she'd never know. "I've been thinking about what you told me," Victor said, returning with a crystal glass of water. "The timing makes sense now. David's been pushing for me to take a vacation, to delegate more responsibility. He insisted on handling the Meridian contract personally." Elena sat on the edge of a leather chair, feeling out of place despite Victor's efforts to make her comfortable. "What exactly is the Meridian contract?" "It's a massive acquisition deal. If it goes through, Sterling Dynamics will essentially double in size overnight. But more importantly, whoever controls the signing process controls the terms." Victor ran a hand through his hair. "I've been so focused on the technical aspects that I didn't consider the political implications." "Do you mean David has power of attorney in certain situations? If I were to become incapacitated, or if I were to delegate authority to him, he could restructure the entire deal, make himself the primary beneficiary instead of the company." Elena felt a chill. "Is that legal?" "Unfortunately, yes. We set it up that way years ago when we were just starting out. We trusted each other completely." Victor's laugh was bitter. "I never imagined I'd need protection from my best friend. What are you going to do?" Victor was quiet for a long moment, staring out at the city. "I'm going to give David exactly what he wants. I'm going to that signing tomorrow, and I'm going to let him think he's won." Elena's eyes widened. "That sounds incredibly dangerous." "It is. But it's also the only way to catch him in the act. If I confront him now, he'll just deny everything and find another way to betray me later. At least this way, I'll have concrete proof of his intentions, and if something goes wrong—" Victor turned to face her, and Elena saw a vulnerability in his expression that he'd never shown in the cafe. "Then I'd lose everything. My company, my life's work, my employees' livelihoods. Everything." The weight of what Elena had set in motion suddenly hit her. By making that phone call, she had potentially saved Victor's company, but she had also put him in incredible danger. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I should have minded my own business." "Don't apologize," Victor said firmly. "You may have just saved my life's work. I owe you more than I can ever repay." He walked to his desk and pulled out a business card, writing something on the back. "This is my personal attorney's number. If anything happens to me tomorrow, call him immediately. Tell him about our conversation tonight." Elena stared at the card, her hands trembling. "Mr. Sterling, I don't think I can handle this responsibility." "Elena, look at me." His voice was gentle but insistent. "You're stronger than you know. You had the courage to warn a stranger about a betrayal that had nothing to do with you. That takes incredible integrity." She looked up at him, seeing not the successful CEO from the magazine covers, but a man who was terrified of losing everything he'd built. "Why are you trusting me with this?" "Because," Victor said softly, "sometimes the most important insights come from the most unexpected places. You saw through David's facade when I was completely blind to it. Your perspective might be exactly what I need to survive tomorrow." Elena stood up, clutching the attorney's card. "What do you need me to do? Just be ready. If this goes wrong, you might be the only witness who can testify to David's real intentions." As the car drove Elena back to her apartment, she stared out at the city lights, knowing that her life had just taken a dramatic turn. Tomorrow, she would either be celebrating the salvation of Sterling Dynamics or dealing with the consequences of a plan gone terribly wrong. She had no idea that by morning, David Kane would already be putting his own contingency plans into motion, and that her role in this corporate drama was far from over. The trap Elena barely slept that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw David's calculating expression and heard Victor's voice saying he could lose everything. By 6 in the morning, she gave up trying to rest and made herself coffee. With shaking hands, the Golden Crown Cafe felt different when she arrived for her shift. The familiar routine of preparing for the morning rush couldn't distract her from the knowledge that somewhere across the city, Victor Sterling was preparing for what could be the most important meeting of his life. At 9:15, Elena found herself automatically looking toward table 7, even though she knew Victor and David wouldn't be coming in today. The empty table felt ominous, like a stage set for a tragedy that was about to unfold. "Lena, you're jumpy as a cat today," her manager Sarah observed as Elena dropped a stack of menus for the second time. "Everything okay? Just tired?" Elena lied, forcing a smile. Late night. The morning crawled by. Lena served customers mechanically, her mind constantly drifting to what might be happening at the Meridian contract signing. She checked her phone obsessively, though she had no idea what she was expecting to see. At 11:30, her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Meeting moved to noon. Sterling Dynamics building, 45th floor. If you don't hear from me by 2 p.m., call the attorney." Elena's blood ran cold. He was keeping her informed, which meant he was genuinely afraid something might go wrong. She showed the text to Sarah, claiming a family emergency, and left the cafe with 20 minutes remaining on her shift. The Sterling Dynamics building looked exactly as it had the night before, but Elena felt like she was seeing it through different eyes. She positioned herself at a coffee shop across the street, where she could watch the building's entrance through the window. At 5 minutes to noon, she saw David Kane emerge from a taxi, carrying a briefcase and looking supremely confident. He walked into the building like a man who owned it, which, if Victor was right, he might soon. Victor arrived 10 minutes later, and Elena was shocked by his appearance. The composed CEO from the night before was gone, replaced by someone who looked exhausted and defeated. His shoulders were slumped, and he walked with the careful gait of someone who had been drinking. Elena's heart sank. Had Victor really been drinking before the most important meeting of his life? Or was this part of his plan to make David overconfident? 2 hours passed with agonizing slowness. Elena ordered coffee after coffee, her nerves too frayed to actually drink them. She watched the building entrance like a hawk, looking for any sign of what was happening inside. At 2:15, her phone rang. Victor's name appeared on the screen, and Elena answered before the first ring finished. "Elena, it's done." Victor's voice was strained but triumphant.
"We got him. What happened? Are you okay?"
"I'm fine."
"Can
you meet me at my office? I want to explain everything in person." 30 minutes later, Elena found herself back in Victor's office, but the atmosphere was completely different. Victor looked exhausted but relieved, and there was a laptop open on his desk showing what appeared to be a video call. "Elena, I'd like you to meet FBI Special Agent Rebecca Chen," Victor said, gesturing to the screen. "She's been investigating corporate fraud in the tech industry and David Kane has been on her radar for months. Elena stared at the screen in confusion. FBI, Agent Chen, a serious-looking woman in her 40s, nodded. Ms. Rodriguez, your tip about David Kane's plans gave us the final piece we needed to build our case. We've been tracking his activities for over a year. I don't understand, Elena said, sinking into a chair. You already knew about David. We suspected him of insider trading and corporate manipulation, Agent Chen explained. But we needed concrete evidence of his intentions. When you called Mr. Sterling last night, he contacted us immediately. Victor leaned forward. Elena, I'm sorry I couldn't tell you the truth. The FBI needed to catch David in the act, and they needed me to behave naturally. That meant keeping you in the dark about the full scope of the operation, so the meeting today was completely monitored, Victor finished. David walked right into our trap. He attempted to manipulate the contract terms, forge my signature on several documents, and even tried to drug my coffee when he thought I wasn't looking. Elena felt dizzy. He tried to drug you? Mild sedative, Agent Chen said from the screen. Enough to make Victor appear incompetent to sign legal documents. It's a classic corporate manipulation tactic. We have everything on video. But you looked like you'd been drinking when you arrived, Elena protested. Victor grinned for the first time since she'd known him. Acting, I figured if David thought I was already impaired, he might get careless. And he did, Elena tried, to process everything she was hearing. So David is going to jail? David is already in custody, Agent Chen confirmed, along with 3 other associates who were part of his scheme. This wasn't just about Sterling Dynamics. They'd been targeting tech companies across the country. Victor stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city. I keep thinking about what would have happened if you hadn't overheard that phone call. David would have succeeded. I would have lost everything, and he would have moved on to his next victim. I was just doing what felt right, Elena said quietly. You were doing what most people wouldn't have the courage to do, Victor replied. You risked your job, your safety, and your peace of mind to warn a stranger about a betrayal.
Nice.
Agent Chen cleared her throat from the laptop screen. Ms. Rodriguez, we're going to need you to testify at David's trial. Your testimony about overhearing his phone conversation will be crucial evidence. Elena nodded, though the thought of testifying in court terrified her. Of course, whatever you need. There's something else, Victor said, returning to his desk. I meant what I said yesterday. About bringing fresh perspective to the company. I'd like to offer you a position as a consultant. You'd be working directly with my executive team to identify potential security vulnerabilities and internal threats. Elena stared at him. Are you serious? Completely. You've already proven you have the instincts for it. Plus, you understand people in a way that most business executives don't. You see things we miss. But I'm just a waitress, Elena protested. You're someone who prevented a multi-million-dollar corporate theft, Victor corrected. That's exactly the kind of person I want on my team. Elena looked between Victor and Agent Chen on the screen, feeling like she was in a dream. 24. Hours ago, she had been worried about paying her rent. Now she was being offered a consulting position at a major tech company and preparing to testify in a federal fraud case. I need time to think about this, she said finally. Of course, take all the time you need. But Elena, Victor's voice was serious. I want you to know that what you did took incredible courage. You didn't just save my company. You saved my faith in human nature. As Elena left the Sterling Dynamics building that evening, she couldn't shake the feeling that her life had just taken a dramatic turn. She had no idea that the biggest surprises were still to come, and that her decision to warn Victor Sterling would lead to consequences she could never have imagined. The city looked different as she walked home, full of possibilities she had never dared to consider. But in the back of her mind, a small voice wondered if she was truly ready for the responsibility that came with her newfound role in Victor's world. The new world. 3 weeks later, Elena found herself sitting in a conference room on the 47th floor of Sterling Dynamics, wearing a tailored blazer that cost more than her old monthly salary. The transformation still felt surreal, like she was playing dress-up in someone else's life. The quarterly security audit revealed some interesting vulnerabilities, she was saying to the assembled executives. Employees in the accounting department regularly share passwords. And I noticed that the cleaning staff has unrestricted access to executive floors after hours. Victor nodded approvingly from across the mahogany table. Excellent observations. Elena, those are exactly the kind of blind spots we need to address. Elena had been working as a security consultant for Sterling Dynamics for 2 weeks now, and she was surprised by how naturally the role suited her. Years of observing people in the cafe had given her an instinct for reading behavior and spotting inconsistencies that others missed. Her official title was Human Intelligence Specialist, and her job was to identify potential security threats from within the company. It was fascinating work, but it also came with an unexpected social challenge: navigating the complex dynamics of corporate life. That's all for today, Victor announced as the meeting concluded. Elena, could you stay for a moment? As the other executives filed out, Elena remained seated, suddenly nervous. In the weeks since David's arrest, she and Victor had developed a professional relationship, but she still felt the weight of their unusual first meeting. How are you settling in? Victor asked, loosening his tie as he sat back down. What's different? Elena admitted. I'm still getting used to having opinions that people actually want to hear. Victor smiled. You'll find that your perspective is increasingly valuable. The corporate world tends to create echo chambers. Having someone who thinks differently is refreshing. Speaking of different, Elena said, I wanted to talk to you about something I've noticed. Victor's expression grew serious. What is it? Your assistant Marcus. He's been asking a lot of questions about your schedule, your meetings, your personal habits. It could be innocent, but given what happened with David, you're concerned about potential inside threats. Exactly. I might be overreacting, but I thought you should know. Victor was quiet for a moment, then reached for his phone. Marcus, could you come to my office, please? Within minutes, Marcus appeared in the doorway looking nervous. He was a young man in his early 30s, impeccably dressed and usually confident, but today he seemed agitated. You wanted to see me, Mr. Sterling? Have a seat, Marcus. Elena has brought something to my attention and I'd like to discuss it with you. Marcus glanced at Elena with barely concealed hostility. I see. The waitress is causing problems already. The comment hung in the air like a physical slap. Elena felt her face burn, but Victor's expression turned glacial. Elena Rodriguez is a valued consultant whose insights have already proven invaluable to this company, Victor said coldly. I suggest you adjust your attitude accordingly. Marcus shifted uncomfortably. I'm sorry, Mr. Sterling. I just don't understand why you're taking security advice from someone with no corporate experience. Because, Victor said, standing up. Someone with no corporate experience just prevented a multi-million-dollar theft. And now that same person is concerned about your behavior, so I'm going to ask you directly, have you been sharing information about my schedule with anyone outside the company? Marcus's face went pale. I'm Mr. Sterling. I can explain. I'm listening. There's a journalist who's been pressuring me for information about the David Kane case. Offered me money for details about your daily routine, your meetings. Your personal life? I never gave her anything specific. But you've been gathering information in case you decided to take her up on the offer? Elena finished. Marcus nodded miserably. I need the money. My student loans, my rent. I was never going to actually sell anything. I just wanted to know. I had the option. Victor was quiet for a long moment.
Marcus.
I'm disappointed.
Marcus.
Not just in your actions, but in the fact that you didn't come to me if you were having financial difficulties. We could have worked something out. Mr. Sterling, I really am. I know you are. But I'm going to have to let you go. HR will be in touch about your final paycheck and benefits. After Marcus left, Victor turned to Elena with a rueful smile. 2 betrayals in a month. I'm starting to think I'm a terrible judge of character. You're not, Elena said firmly. You're just trusting, which is actually a good quality. It's just that trust needs to be balanced with vigilance. Is that your professional opinion, Ms. Rodriguez? Elena laughed. It's my human opinion. Professional opinion is that you need better background checks and more psychological screening for employees with access to sensitive information. Victor walked to the window, looking out at the city. You know, 3 weeks ago, I thought I had my life figured out. Successful company, trusted partners, clear vision for the future. Now I'm questioning everything. It's not necessarily a bad thing, Elena observed. Sometimes we need our worlds shaken up to see them clearly. Speaking of shaken up, Victor said, turning back to her, I have something to ask you. The FBI called this morning. David's trial is scheduled for next month, and they want to discuss your testimony preparation. Lena felt a familiar knot of anxiety in her stomach. I've been dreading that. You don't have to do it alone. I'll be testifying too, and the FBI will prepare you thoroughly. Agent Chen said, You're a crucial witness. I know. I just never imagined I'd be testifying in a federal courthouse about corporate fraud. A month ago, the most stressful part of my day was remembering who ordered decaf. Victor laughed. And now, you're catching potential corporate spies and preparing to take down a criminal organization? It's quite a career pivot. You could say that? Lena paused, then looked at Victor seriously. Can I ask you something personal? Of course. Do you ever regret trusting me? A complete stranger who overheard a conversation and called you out of the blue? Victor considered the question carefully. Elena, in the past month, you've saved my company. Identified a security threat and proven yourself to be one of the most perceptive people I've ever worked with. The only thing I regret is that it took a crisis for our paths to cross. Elena felt a warmth spread through her chest. I never thanked you properly for the opportunity you've given me. You don't need to thank me. You've earned everything you've received. Victor walked back to his desk and pulled out a folder. Which brings me to my next point. I'd like to offer you a permanent position as Director of Internal Security. Full benefits, competitive salary, and your own team. Lena stared at the folder he was extending toward her director. Victor, I've been here for 2 weeks. And in those 2 weeks, you've already proven more valuable than employees I've had for years. You have instincts that can't be taught and a perspective that's exactly what this company needs. Elena took the folder with trembling hands. I need to think about this, of course. Take your time. Elena, Victor's voice was gentle. Don't let imposter syndrome hold you back. You belong here. You've already proven that. As Elena left, the Sterling Dynamics building that evening, she carried the folder containing her job offer and the weight of a decision that would change her life forever. She had no idea that her choice would not only affect her own future, but would also set in motion events that would test everything she thought she knew about trust, loyalty, and the true meaning of success. The city lights glittered below as she walked home, each one representing a life, a choice, a moment of transformation. Elena Rodriguez was no longer the invisible waitress who served coffee to the powerful. She was becoming something new, something she had never dared to imagine. But with great opportunity came great responsibility. And Elena was about to discover that her biggest challenges were still ahead. The resolution 6 months after the trial that sent David Kane to prison for 15 years, Elena Rodriguez stood in her corner office on the 48th floor of Sterling Dynamics, looking out at the city that had once seemed so distant from her small apartment. The nameplate on her door read, Elena Rodriguez, Director of Internal Security. But the woman who bore that title was fundamentally different from the waitress who had served coffee just 7 months earlier. The courtroom testimony had been grueling, but Elena's clear. Honest account of overhearing David's phone conversation had been pivotal in securing his conviction. The judge had commended her courage in coming forward, and the media had briefly labeled her a corporate whistleblower hero. Elena had hated the attention, but she had endured it because she knew it was the right thing to do. Her team now consisted of 12 specialists who investigated internal threats, conducted background checks, and maintained the security protocols that kept Sterling Dynamics safe from corporate espionage. Elena had discovered that she had a talent for leadership, something she never would have learned serving coffee. Elena. The quarterly board meeting is in 10 minutes, her assistant Jennifer announced through the intercom. Thanks, I'll be right there. Elena gathered her reports and headed toward the boardroom, where she would present her findings to the board of directors. 6 months ago, the thought of addressing a room full of powerful executives would have terrified her. Now, it felt like a natural part of her responsibilities. The boardroom was packed with Sterling Dynamics' most important stakeholders. Victor sat at the head of the table, looking relaxed and confident in a way that Elena hadn't seen since before. The David Kane crisis. Ladies and gentlemen, Victor began, I'd like Elena Rodriguez to present her quarterly security report. Elena stood, her presentation materials in hand. Thank you, Mr. Sterling. I'm pleased to report that Sterling Dynamics has had zero security breaches in the past 6 months. We've implemented new protocols for employee screening, established secure communication channels, and created a comprehensive threat assessment program. Board member Patricia Wells, a sharp-eyed woman in her 60s, leaned forward. Ms. Rodriguez, what specific measures have you taken to prevent another David Kane situation? We've instituted psychological evaluations for all employees with access to sensitive information, regular audits of financial transactions, and a confidential reporting system for employees who notice suspicious behavior. Most importantly, we've created a culture where questioning unusual behavior is encouraged, not discouraged. The presentation continued for 30 minutes, with Elena fielding questions about budget allocation, staff training, and long-term security strategies. She answered each question with confidence, drawing on knowledge she had gained through intensive study and practical experience. When the meeting concluded, Victor approached her as the other board members filed out. Outstanding work, Elena. The board is impressed with what you've accomplished. Thank you. I have to admit, 6 months ago, I never would have imagined I'd be capable of this. I knew you were capable the moment you made that phone call, Victor said. You just needed the opportunity to prove it to yourself. Elena smiled, then grew serious. Victor, I wanted to talk to you about something personal. Of course, what's on your mind? I've been thinking about the Golden Crown Cafe. I drive by it every morning on my way to work, and I see Sarah still working there, still struggling to make ends meet. I'd like to do something to help. Victor's expression softened. What did you have in mind? I want to create a scholarship program for service industry workers who want to transition to corporate careers. Not everyone will have the opportunity I had, but maybe we can create pathways for people who are ready to take that leap. That's a wonderful idea. Draft a proposal and we'll present it to the board next month. Elena nodded, feeling a sense of purpose that went beyond her personal success. Or something else. I've been offered a position with the FBI. Victor's smile faltered. Oh, I see. Agent Chen thinks my skills would be valuable in their corporate fraud division.
Nice.
A significant opportunity. It sounds like it is. Are you going to take it? Elena was quiet for a moment, looking out at the city through the boardroom windows. A year ago, I would have jumped at any opportunity to change my life. But now I realize that change isn't about escaping where you are. It's about becoming who you're meant to be. And who are you meant to be, Elena? She turned back to Victor with a smile. I'm meant to be here, building something meaningful with people I trust. The FBI offer is flattering, but Sterling Dynamics is where I belong. Victor's relief was visible. I'm glad to hear that. This company is stronger because of you. I'm stronger because of this company, because of the chance you took on me. That evening, Elena returned to her new apartment, a spacious 2-bedroom in a building with a doorman and a view of the park. She had moved out of her studio apartment 3 months earlier, but she kept a photo of her old neighborhood on her desk as a reminder of how far she had come. Her phone buzzed with a text from Sarah at the Golden Crown Cafe. Saw you on the news again. So proud of you. Coffee's on the house whenever you want to visit. Lena smiled and typed back, I'll be there Saturday morning. Need to talk about something exciting. As she prepared for bed, Elena reflected on the journey that had brought her here. A simple act of courage, a willingness to speak up when she witnessed something wrong, had transformed not just her life, but the lives of everyone around her. She thought about David Kane, now serving his sentence and facing the consequences of his betrayal. She thought about Victor, who had learned to balance trust with vigilance. She thought about the Sterling Dynamics, employees who now worked in a more secure environment because of the systems she had put in place. But mostly, she thought about the woman she had become, not because someone had rescued her from her circumstances, but because she had found the courage to rescue herself and others in the process. Elena Rodriguez had started as a waitress who was invisible to the world around her. She had become a leader who ensured that no one else would be overlooked or undervalued. She had learned that the most powerful transformations don't come from changing your circumstances, but from changing how you respond to them. As she turned off the lights in her apartment, Elena smiled at the thought of tomorrow's challenges. She had built something meaningful from a moment of moral courage, and she was ready to keep building. The city lights twinkled outside her window, each one representing a life, a choice, a possibility. Elena Rodriguez was no longer watching from the sidelines. She was an active participant in shaping the future, one decision at a time. The game had ended, but the real victory was just beginning. The end.